Hey guys, thought I'd do what I think is going to be a quick video. We're going to kind of do a breakdown of the Halo Infinite trailer. I was pretty harsh on this yesterday, and I kind of want to go into a little bit more detail as far as the things that I saw while I was running. Some of them are a little worse on review than what I thought they were. Some of them are still pretty bad, and I think I might have some ideas why, but we're going to go ahead and go into that now. So let's go ahead and cut to the video and get started. So this is just the title screen. You're not going to notice too much here, I don't think. It's a pretty standard start screen for like Halo. It looks pretty good. There's some nice particle effects. So we're going to go ahead and right into a cutscene where he's just talking to his pilot, whose name we have no idea from. The textures on him are a little bland. I'm not really sure why, but here's the first real problem. As you stop and you zoom in, you're going to notice real quickly that it doesn't look like any textures have rendered on this at all. It could be from draw distance or whatnot, but if this is a rendered cutscene, that really should have had some texture. There's no real good excuse for this to not be clean. Now, if they're using some of the things that I think they're using, which I'll go into in a little bit, I think that maybe why, because what they're doing is working with the velocity architecture, which could be causing the problems even here if they're trying to render it live. But let's go ahead and carry on. So we're going to slow this next process down to about 10% of actual game speed. And you can see it looks like everything's a little blurry. The console's a little blurry. All the textures as it pans over to the left are a little blurry. Everything's just kind of flat, like it's missing a lot of resolution. Like things just haven't quite popped in yet at all. So as we keep watching this at like 10th speed and we move forward, you can see it looks like the textures are starting to come in. So there's a shot that comes in that hits the glass, which will hit in here just now, and then everything kind of blacks out. And then as it comes back in, you can see it looks like the textures have cleaned up. There's so much more detail. The trees look much more detailed. It's like it finally had time to render. It's like their velocity processing finally had time to catch up, which makes me think this isn't really using the Xbox architecture. So they're continuing to go through the landing. We haven't even gotten out of the cutscenes yet. You can see it looks like he's starting to get a little bit more detail. There's an okay water effect when they hit. Not a lot of water droplets, but some splash, and then everything goes black. So now he's waking up. It still looks blurry. And now it's finally cleaned up a little bit. You can see all the detail on John's armor, Master Chief's armor. And he's just cussing him out. As they're talking, you can see the textures on his face start to kind of come in. It's like it's the computer's finally catching up to what they want to present you as far as detail goes. But it's just taking time, like way too much time on a modern SSD, assuming this is running on an SSD from what I can tell. Now when they're in the middle of this argument, when you start looking at him, you can see he's got a lot more detail on it, on his jacket and on his face. And the Spartan's armor also has a lot of like weathering and detailing, things that make the textures pop rather than just being a flat texture. So as they continue basically arguing here, as you turn back, you can see they've still got that detail. Look at the gauntlet now. Look at the shoulder plate. Look at the helmet. Look at all the weathering and the detailing and everything like that. Look at the gun. Take a real close look at the gun. So as we're looking at this gun, you can see there's a lot of detail here that you're not seeing once it goes more live. Look at when he pulls out the gun versus what the gun looks like on his back now when it actually comes live. So they're going to argue for just a little bit more, and then it should switch to first-person view here pretty soon. And I'm still pretty impressed with the details so far on the armor in the rendered scene, particularly around the helmet and right around the neckline. It looks clean as far as the armor goes. And then we go back to the gun, and as you get it in the light, you notice like all those kind of fine details like the weathering, the blackening around like the slide and everything like that's just gone. It almost looks like a flat texture. And then as you move along a little bit, it looks like it's finally gotten a little bit more detail. So I've slowed this down to about 10%. Look how long this takes to come in. Still coming in, still coming in, still coming in. There it is. It finally came in. Now it's fading out again. And it does that through the whole thing. Even the ship flying in the air just looks kind of like flat. Like there's no textures to it. Like it doesn't feel like it needs to render it. Even the Warthog here looks kind of flat. There's no weathering. There's no anything like that on it. So as he takes off, we're going to slow this down. Look, you've got water resolution on the tires. There's some splash. This is good. This part's really good. There's some mud that kicks up on the left tire. And then here's where things start going south. He starts to slide right about here. Notice no tracks. The water effects are there. You've got a few minor particle effects, but nothing major. Nothing has any lasting effect. All the particles don't even match up with the tires or anything like that at this point. Everything looks out of sync for some reason. I don't know why. So you can see the grass looks like it's starting to struggle a little bit again. It's starting to kind of pop in. As soon as he stops in, there it is. It pops in. Almost just as soon as you go to the map. So the map itself actually looks good. I like this part. This is a really good looking map. I like all the detail of the movement and all that. So now you got all the textures. You got some pretty good lighting coming in. No real ray tracing. But you can see when he launches, there's no effects. He lands, there's an impact. Shortly after the impact, all the textures, particles are gone. So now he's back out. And this part looks okay. He's got some good texture on his gloves. He's got good texture on his armor. Particularly on the elbow. That looks good. The guns lack a bit of polish and weathering. It's like he's flopping them so fast that they don't have time to resolve the textures. Even the brutes. The brutes look kind of flat. They look like a gray texture. There's no fur, there's no detail. Knocking the helmet off was nice. The grapple into him looks good. The grappling hook actually looks like a lot of fun. But you can kind of start to see the gun getting some detail. It's taking it a bit of time, but it's happening. The music is great. Nothing new. It sounds great, rather. This part has some good detail on the metal and all that. The skybox isn't too bad. It's a little sparse on clouds, but you can see the same vehicle we saw from before actually has detail now. This is probably my favorite gun that they showed. This gun looks fun. The sound on the guns, the kickback, all that looks good. But you can see all the problems I've mentioned before happening here. The grass textures aren't coming in. A lot of the details look flat for a little while. Eventually they resolve, but they're having problems. Now, it could be that it's an early build. It could have been that it's on PC. It could have been that it's not optimized for the velocity texture. I don't know yet. I suspect it's a mixture of all of them. That part's cool. Being able to pull something towards you and then throw it, that's cool. But you can see a lot of these guys, they just don't have detail. Like, they're there, but the architecture hasn't seen fit to really fully render everything to try to keep the speed and frame rate up. Like, most of this stuff, the way it's rendered now, looks like it could have been rendered on an Xbox One. It doesn't take away from the fact that the game looks fun. It does look fun. That looks good. And then all this closes, and then all of a sudden we get this weird fog, like some dust or something, like they just decided to add an effect for no reason.
Your people are broken, scattered, hunted, defeated by me. I wish I could tell you it was difficult.
Even his jumpsuit, that looks bland. Like, you can't tell anything with the fibers. There's no texture to the jacket. It's just glossy and plasticky looking.
The ring is already under our control. Soon, the auditorium as well. The Harbinger and the Banished share the same goal. We fight together to honor
I
the
kind of like the
ring
idea behind this
of
bad guy. I like the fact of a brute being the bad guy. They were kind of the bad guys in Halo 2, and them harkening back to that is kind of nice.
Weary, lost, alone. Hear you now.
But even here, he looks waxy to start, and then slowly, there it is. There's the detail.
It's my last fight.
Not everywhere, but you can see it like on his cheeks. You can see it near his eye that's red. You can start to see it on his teeth. You can see some of like the liquid-looking effects along the teeth.
Set a fire in your heart, Spartan. Bear your fang.
But the blade itself that's on his right shoulder comes in and out of having texture. So that was my breakdown. Hopefully you guys like it and kind of understand more kind of why I'm annoyed. It looks more or less like we've gone back a few years in processing power and how textures and things like that are rendered. I suspect a lot of this is due to the velocity architecture that they're trying to implement into most of the games. I suspect that it's kind of built into the SDK and it's not quite been optimized for Halo yet. And since this was an earlier build by all reports, and since it was running on a PC by all reports, that we're going to have some problems with this particular build. I'm hoping by the time it's released that this is much, much cleaner and that we get a much better experience. Because while I don't necessarily judge games by their graphical content, I still go back and play Halo 2. I love the remastered edition of that, and a lot of those textures look flat. Judging this one by a higher standard, mostly because the Xbox platform itself has said, hey, we've got 12 teraflops, we've got this, we've got that. They're acting like they want to have high graphical fidelity and they want things to look clean and tight and real and visceral, and they want to have all these minor details and things that are missing, quite frankly, from this video that we've seen so far. So hopefully you guys kind of enjoyed this breakdown. Hopefully it was useful to you. Hopefully you understand my viewpoint, my frustration with it so far. I know a lot of you guys are feeling it as well. I'm hoping this turns out to be fun. I still kind of want to play it. I'll be honest. It still looks fun. As much as I'm bagging on it, it still looks fun and like something I want to play. I just don't feel the need to go out and buy a new console for it unless it just renders super poorly. And if that's the case, then that kind of breaks the entire premise of what they're trying to do with this platform, which is to let things run on the One, run on the Series X, run on the PC, and have a similar quality experience across them all. That's sort of been the message they've been giving us, and if that's not what we're going to get, if we're going to get something like this here, and we're going to get something a lot more tightly detailed and a lot more smooth and better rendered on the Series X, then I feel kind of like they're giving us a vat of snake oil here. It just doesn't seem honest. It seems a little shady to me. So I'm kind of hoping they'll give us some more. I'm starting to really lose hope in Microsoft. They were my favorite platform at the 360, and now it seems like they just kind of don't care. They want to move towards more of an ecosystem, like a cloud architecture and that kind of thing. They don't really care to really do consoles or really worry about games. They're kind of rushing things out because this clearly feels rushed. Like they needed Halo at launch to move the console, to get people excited about their name. They needed a Halo. And so while I wasn't a big fan of 343 when they first took over Halo, they've done an okay job with it, and they can do better than what I've seen. And so I feel like they've not been given enough time to really kind of get any of this done, and that's hugely disappointing in my mind. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think of the breakdown, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for the time. Bye.